any good lecture, we start with once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a very young yogi. His name was Swami Rama. He wrote a wonderful book, Living with Himalayan Masters. Now, he was a protege of like an incarnation of a Lama, whatever. Long story short, he started his meditation practice since the age of 4. His master took him from where he was and said, look, he told his parents, he's an incarnation. It's very common in Tibet, the parents didn't even blink. Anyhow, so that little boy starts a process of meditation of a minimum 4 hours a day from the age of 4. And then he's reading there all the texts and so forth, and all of them speak about, oh, you need to overcome attachment, you need to overcome attachment. This is quite common in the spiritual traditions. And then he was asking his master, well, what's the nature of attachment? How exactly is attachment working? And the master said nothing. Then they go and do their 4 hours meditation, and the little boy is very restless because he's thinking, what's this attachment that we need to get rid of? Everybody talk about attachment. And then on his way back from the cave, he walks there with his master, and as they walk back, their master clings into a tree, and he starts to shout. The young boy's name, Rama, 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 save me, save me. And the little boy is with tears in his eyes, trying to pull the master from the tree. The master was much stronger, and the master is holding, and he says, no, it's a magical tree, it has power over me. And he pulls it, and you can imagine the situation. And then suddenly, the master lets go of the tree and continues walking. And the little boy with tears and walking next to him, and what happened now? I said, well, you asked the nature of attachment, here you go. It's us. We create them. And there's a false idea for detachment and the nature of attachment. All process of attachments are unconscious. All process of detachment are a result of a conscious choice. All process of attachments are unconscious, detachment conscious choice. You know how they catch monkeys so they can train them? Very simple. They have a jar and they put inside a fruit that is somehow bigger than the size, like you can imagine a pile of bananas, which is bigger than the size of the hand of the monkey together with the fruit. And then the monkey puts there the fruit, and he cannot get his hand out with the fruit. So, in theory, he can choose, okay, let me just let go of the fruit and go away, but he cannot. It's the simplest way to catch a monkey. And unfortunately, we are very much alike. We cannot let go. Now there is the whole false detachment, which is this kind of, I'm cool. Which literally means, I don't care. Which has nothing to do with detachment. It is indifference. You simply don't care, which is fine. I mean, for example, some people here care about football. Some people don't care about football. So what? It's not like you have to care and care about everything. No, it's a matter of affinity. But detachment means to deeply care while not being attached. And that is a great art. And I must say, often we need to start with the small things of life until we manage to manifest detachment in our relationship, detachment in our work, detachment from family and friends. Because we oscillate between being attached and being indifferent. And both of them are two poles of sufferance. Detachment is infused with joy. To participate in an act without being attached to its consequence was considered one of the highest forms of yoga. It was called karma yoga. And this is the base of evolution as a human being. Now we were even taught you need to create attachment to feel a sense of belonging. And we cultivate attachments in relationship so we feel that we are owned by someone. But we're not pets. We don't need an owner. We need someone to love. And we create the whole entanglement. And I must say, I'm doing this I'm teaching now for like 2 decades. Over a decade, I've been studying for 2 decades. So many people come with exactly the same problem. Simply because they don't know how to create a relationship without being attached in it. So either they are alone or they are attached. And in both cases, they suffer. And personally, I don't believe sufferance is a solution for personal evolution. Sufferance can occur and can trigger a process of self-inquiry, growth, and so forth, but it's not something that we should pursue. So why do we create so many relationships in which we had suffered in our life? Hands up those who have a relationship in which they suffered in or they felt attachment in. No. I mean, it happens to other people, but not here and there. Well, it's exactly because we haven't learned how to. We haven't learned how to love without being attached. We never learned how to work without awaiting our rewards. We have never learned the art of being involved and being detached at the same time. And as we said at the beginning, attachments are constantly born out of an unconscious participation in the act of that which we do. Detachment is cultivated by awareness. Hence, here we aim to speak about how we will cultivate this detachment. Now you see, we can be attached to many things, or to many elements in life. And very often they will be related for what is called in the yogic and tantric tradition the 7 fundamental layers of consciousness, which are called the chakras. There is a picture of this behind you. Literally, they are meant wheels of energy. We can translate them very easily as levels of our psyche. And in the first level of our psyche, which is called Muladhara chakra, or the base level, we have great attachment for life itself. And hence comes the biggest fear that we ever encounter in our life, and is the source of all other forms of fears, which will be death. So this is the most fundamental fear. Now, we always think, oh, I have to have that fear. No, we don't. We can stay alive without being afraid of death. We have a whole seminar we do about it. It's called The Art of Dying, and it's not like shoot everyone and see who reincarnates the quickest. I mean, it's about learning how to overcome the fundamental fear that we have from death, because that is the fear of transformation, it's that which holds us back. And it is related to our attachment to life itself. And you know what? They made a fascinating research, and they found out that what people are afraid the most in death is not even the sufferance of the physical body, but it's the idea that the world continues without them. And after a while, nobody actually noticed. Which is, unfortunately, I must say, will be true for most of us. The world will continue. And yes, I mean, it's not that people who loved us won't feel it, but the world will continue. And that is terrifying for an individual which constantly affirms its existence by the way they are relating to others, or kind of affirming with the relationship to the world. So that's at the level of Muladhara chakra. And the second level of consciousness is called Swadhisthana chakra, and there we find very much the interhuman relationship, and there the game of attachment reaches very often its peak, and is the way it manifests. And here we find the attachment that we have in relationships. We find its consequences such as jealousy, possessiveness, insecurity, this type. That is connected to the attachment that we have in the second level of consciousness, Swadhisthana. Then in the third level of consciousness, we'll have Manipura. And then here it's very much connected to our ego. And we are very much attached to our status, to my position, to how I am at work, that form of attachment. And you see, already attachment becomes a bit more nuanced. Now, as a general rule in spirituality, the only way to remove darkness is through the propagation of light, or through increasing the luminosity. Now, in the beginning, all processes of attachments are born in the unconscious. First and foremost, if we aim to overcome our attachments, we need to become aware of them. If you are not aware of something, your possibility of overcoming it are zero. It's not like suddenly, and you're enlightened. Oh my God, how like that? It doesn't work like that. You don't just get luminosity in an area of your life and you overcome attachment just like that. Sometimes time will be at your side because the process of attachment is refueled by repetition of an action. So if you stop the action, for example, seeing that person, also the process of attachment to that person will be lessened, but you stay as attached. And you will start a new relationship and you will be as attached from the start. Because we haven't cured it. And I must confess here, this lecture was written by somebody who was a very attached character. I'm a Mediterranean. We thought that this is how you cannot live without being attached. And this is how you are. You hold things so tightly, so you affirm their existence. It's like the story of the little girl who got back from her birthday gift in the car. She got back with a rabbit and she held it so tight she killed it. This is how we believe this love is. You have to hold them. Try a Jewish family. I mean, you hold them like this good. And I had to look at each and every area of my life to transform it, because otherwise I realized I just repeat exactly the same patterns. And it's not a surprise I repeat the same patterns because I'm doing exactly the same thing. Surprise, surprise. Now, another fundamental dictum here, which was said by another great person from Israel, is Jesus, when he said, "Know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." All process of attachments are born out of false knowledge. We think that we are that. It's born out of false identification. I am sure that this is a continuation of me. I had that experience many years ago. I was a very big football fan, football player. I loved football. Then I started doing yoga at the age of 17. Gradually, my interest changed. Then I went back home, and the team that I was like a big fan, going to all the matches, was playing on the screen there. And I was looking at them and I was like, I'm not involved in it anymore. I don't feel that that team is a continuation of me. I wasn't identified with that. And I realized, oh my God, that's a revelation. This isn't me anymore. And I was continuously associating that with me. And we do it all the time. We affirm existence by identifying with elements around us. And from this family, from that, and then we create our identity, and accordingly we create our attachments to it. First and foremost, we need to realize that that is not us. Then we are able to both love it fully, integrate it, or infuse our energies with it, by being fully involved, but realize it's not us. And then you look at areas in your life, as a suggestion, we'll come in the end to a set of practical tools, and we realize that that's not me. In a relationship, you love that person, but you are not that relationship. It is not you. You want another form of identification we have with a car. Imagine that you will drive your car all your life, and you never go out. You do everything with the car. So if the car is crashed, you're sure that you're certain it's you, but it's not you. You're just the driver. But you're so identified with the structure, the vehicle, that you say, "Oh, but that's me." It's not. False identifications, false areas in our life which we think is us, are the cause for all attachments. Hence, the truth shall set us free. We realize that's not us. We diminish the power of attachment, of the force that action, that relationship, that interaction has upon us. Tell me if you recognize the following situation. You fall in love. And it's all so sweet. And then gradually it grows and it grows. And it's more and more close, and you interact more and more and more. And suddenly you feel something doesn't feel right. And you start to look around. What happened? What happened to you? What happened is exactly this. You fall in love. we start to create a very strong emotional bond, which is wonderful, by the way. The problem is we identify with that and we open the door to what is cancerous. And I use the harsh word cancer because it grows unnoticed until it kills the organism. We grow in attachment, and the moment the love decreases a little bit, we fill it with attachment. And in the end, what is left is very little love and a lot of habits, attachments, and emotional dependency. And you ask yourself, how come? We're so in love. When did that creep in? Exactly when you were asleep, the sleep of consciousness. We weren't attentive to the relationship itself. We were, unfortunately, very focused on ourselves and on what we thought. And then, a beautiful relationship ends. Sounds familiar? It's not a fatal situation, you know. Love is one of the greatest gifts that we ever received. Every time we fall in love. It's a gift. Unfortunately, we didn't get the manual so well with it, which makes it so that we're a bit clumsy with that gift. And pardon my French, we screw up sometimes. But it is exactly the skill of learning from this that we will learn to propagate and have much more love in our life. And being detached is one of the pillars of knowing how to continuously allow love to grow in our life. Only a detached lover can say, facilitate or support an infinite growth of love. A love that continuously is growing. Now I know it sounds an ideal, but it's something that we can pursue. And I would say that with practice, like with anything, one can reach great achievement with that. And then we exchange the sufferings, as we said at the beginning, for this continuous joy and happiness that springs from that. Until now. We're good. We're going to have another 20, 30 minutes more talk and then questions and answers and exercise. I'm going to read now a few bullet points about emotional dependency. I would recommend that you look at yourself a little bit from a side and you look at yourself, that person, how much of these mechanisms do they have in their relationship, in their interaction with the world? So you don't get too attached to it. You can even write yourself kind of from 1 to 10, how much is, from the list I'm going to read now, is relevant to you. The feeling that you cannot decide by your own. Any decision that you do is uncomfortable, you're anxious, you're constantly tense about whatever decision you take. This list of emotional dependencies. The fear of taking any responsibility. Constantly projecting responsibility on the others. Constantly blaming the others for our lacks. Feeling in one way or another a victim in our relationship. The fear of expressing one's own thoughts and emotions. The constant focus on what the other think and say about us. And you know, this is an anecdote here. They made the research. Most people don't think about other people as much as people think. We're constantly concerned what people would say about us, and because we are so concerned what people say about us, nobody is there attentive to the other because we're so concerned. You understand how it goes? It just doesn't happen. So being constantly anxious about that, even forms of social anxiety. Complex inferiority, inferiority complex, which often can lead to aggression. You feel you're less from the others and then you try to affirm your position by being stronger or by emitting force in a disharmonious way. That inferiority complexes. Being unstable emotionally, constantly depending on the other to affirm where we are emotionally. Often walking on eggshells or needing kind of to affirm our existence by projecting on the other very firmly how our insecurities. The constant feeling of not being loved. The constant feeling of being rejected. A state of jealousy, envy, and constantly blaming the others for our state of mind. And the state that unfortunately appears is that one of constant manipulative and feeling manipulated. Feeling the interaction is often a power game. There's a constant power game. So instead of a tango, it's an arm wrestle, a relationship. Sounds familiar? To your friend. Happens. All of these forms of emotional dependency are a fruit of our attachments. And they're not fatal, they can be cured. Now, here when we speak about curing it, is taking a perspective. As we said, the tools you set us free. Now, sometimes, and very often, the problem can be explained with a very simple experiment, which will include your thumb and your eye. Hold your thumb. Take out the glasses if you wear it, and look at the thumb from a distance 20-30 centimeters, just in front of you. Look how nice is your thumb. Some of you have wonderful nails. Your thumb. Now, I would like you to bring your thumb very close to your eye, like seriously close until you meet your eyelashes. Can you see the thumb? Put it back. And again, I'm just to make a point. What happens? Huh?
It obscures your view.
It obscures, not only it obscures your view, can you properly see the thumb? It's too close. We're simply too close and we cannot see it. Da Vinci, when he was painting, he said, I paint a bit and then I go far away so I can take a perspective on what I do. Fascinating. Often we are so entangled and we lose the perspective and we cannot see. I don't know if it happened to you, it happened to me. I was entangled in a relationship, jealousy, full of crisis. After a while, the relationship finished and I was like looking back and I was, what on earth happened to me back then? It's as if there was a force that took me. I was I couldn't sleep at night. I was angry. I saw these things. What on earth happened to me? I lost my perspective. I couldn't see the thumb. I couldn't see the other person. I couldn't see the relationship. So I took it. It was too close. Lost perspective. Lost the relationship, inevitably. And then comes the wonderful idea. And the concept that if two birds want to fly together, they can only do so if they don't tie their wings. And the idea that we are there together, specifically we speak about the process of attachment in a relationship, only when one is when you wish for the other one's freedom and you see them as an individual and constantly have that perspective, and like that you can love them fully. Because I must tell you, when you cannot see your thumb, you can also not love that thumb or that person. When it's too close, you don't notice the other one. And how often that appears in a relationship that you feel that the other one doesn't see you anymore. They don't see you because you're too close. And sometimes one needs to take a break. One needs a bit of space from one another, as if a breather. And then you can have the perspective again. Until now, are we free? Are we not free? Are we clear? Hopefully also free. Are we clear?
Yeah.
It's good. You want to hear about ways of overcoming attachment? How can we become less attached and cultivate the process of detachment? First and foremost is the way in which we relate to life itself. If one understands that part of the fundamental meaning of one's own existence is to learn. Life, from a certain perspective, is a schooling system, and each and every interaction, each and every relationship, Each and every action we do has a hidden meaning, has a hidden lesson within it. That perspective already will fuel a certain willingness to grow. And regardless to the size of the attachment that we might confront with, we see them as a beneficial challenge. And we made a whole industry of challenges. We call it the gym. We go to the gym to challenge ourselves. If you just go there and you look at all the hot boys, hot girls, and you're like, what that sweat that they have? I mean, you will never grow muscle, right? I mean, you will never become fitter. So, the same way, if you just stand aside and look at how everybody makes an effort, you will never grow spiritually as a human being. So, first and foremost is the idea that we look at life situation and the difficulties, the challenges, as a possibility of growth. That the reality of the gym is much closer to actually the way things are. We grow in muscles, spiritual muscles, emotional muscles, mental muscles. So that's the first and foremost. And as you will see, it will come in the exercise that we will do in the end. Then, continue with ways of overcoming. First and foremost, the ability of reinventing ourselves. The process of attachment often lingers because we think that this is how we are. But we are not. One of the strong forms of attachment is our attachment to the way we conceive ourselves. I am always like that. Maybe not. How about being new? Now there is one way of doing it which is slightly mechanical, which is involving a frying pan and hitting yourself in the head enough time to get amnesia, to rediscover yourself because you're new. I won't recommend it. Another way is to be in a continuous process of transformation and growth. To realize that the way you were before might not be the way you are now. Not just because you grew a beard. It happens to us men. But we are fundamentally anew. We have the possibility to be anew. And the possibility of being anew is easily can be expressed that in a similar situation, we can act radically different. In a situation you would often be quiet, docile, you say, no, this isn't right. And in a situation that you often get angry, you stay and you listen attentively. That's an expression of growth. You have transformed. Now, fundamentally, we need to realize that we need to otherwise remove the attachment from how we were. Because if we constantly consider how we were as that is how I am, how will we ever grow? How will we ever transform if we constantly affirm the same old idea that this is how I am? And you hear it very often in relationships. Oh, but this is just who I am. How about no? How about reinvent yourself? And here, one of the fundamental keys that we study in great depth, and we practice very often for many hours in our life, is the process of the awakening of our inner fire, and a process which is called transmutation, sublimation, constantly raising the energies. If you remember, in the beginning we said that process of attachment often comes from the inferior levels of our being, the lower chakra, the lower levels of consciousness. When we are able to increase, otherwise, or tilt the balance to superior levels, increase the activation of the superior levels, then we will also be able to overcome our attachments. I give myself an easy analogy. I need to run faster than the attachments are running after me. They cannot catch me. If I transform quicker than my habits cannot catch me. And habits becomes weaker when we stop affirming them. And then we can gradually, in the process of setting ourselves free or emancipation. Then we said the closer we look, the less we see. The thumb, lifting level of consciousness, working on superior levels, and then becoming aware. Simply embracing the fact that we are having some certain attachments is the key to start mobilizing the process. And then here it's not about the process of, oh my God, I'm attached, and we start this self-flagellation, and I am so horrible, and I do this. A child, when he learns to walk, he stumbles many times. We now learn a whole new way of being, which is loving in a detached way, which being involved in an action without requesting affirmation. It's a whole new way of being. Obviously, like the little toddler, we won't start and run like bolt. Start and we fall, but accepting the fact that it's a learning curve. And then we can grow to that. I wish we still had the same optimism that we had when we were that small. Imagine if we would be a pessimistic little toddler. After fell the first time, said, nah, walking isn't for me. Look, can you just buy me those caps for my elbows and knees? I keep crying. What's the problem? I like them. I mean, luckily we were optimistic. And we should keep the same spirit. Our relationship, you noticed attachment again, well, habits, let me overcome that. And then, through the power of repetition, through the intensity of our practice, through our optimism, we will overcome it. We can, I would dare say, if you don't believe you can love without being attached, you will never manage. Only if you believe that there is that possibility and you can feel it, even a glimpse of it in your heart, you know where to walk to, you know where to grow. So first and foremost, we need to believe that there is a possibility. Now, if in a relationship we often have continuous process of being attached, consider taking time off. And time off, I don't mean a decade. Consider taking a month, 2 months, to say, look, we exchange the love that we have between us with attachment. Let's take time off, put the sun back, and cultivate the sense of love. It's not like we take time off, I don't think about you, finally she's off my back, No, it's not about that. You gain the state of love without the attachment for the habits that you created. And afterwards, restart the relationship. Sometimes we so together that we cannot fly because we tied our wings. It's exactly the time to untie them. Sometimes you will need time apart. If we have, for example, take another level of consciousness, attachments to our looks, attachment to our status and so forth, consider a while without buying anything, except food, of course, so you don't get too hungry. Or a while in a retreat, alone, when there is no social media. You don't take a selfie by myself again, here alone. No. A week with nothing to affirm your existence but your existence itself. Because often we're like bats. You know how bats navigate? They make a sound, they listen where it echoes, and like this they can, because they are blind. That's why we have the same blind as the bat, because they are blind. They constantly affirm their existence by what they have around them. And we do slightly the same. We constantly affirm our existence in life by how people react to me. I spent over a year and a half in isolation. Not in one go, accumulative. There's nobody there to affirm your existence. Nada. It's just you. And in the beginning, I must say, it's difficult. Because we're so used to affirm our existence. It's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. We don't do it consciously. Some to the limit, sometimes. But we don't really do it consciously. But this is the way in which we affirm where we are and how we are. And in a period in complete isolation, one realizes, that's just who I am, regardless of anything. Me is just me. And you realize it's not a jest, it's a reflection of the splendor of divinity in the heart of man. But there's a shift here, and we break social status. I say, having a chance to reinvent ourselves completely. If we are very attached to our physical existence, I warmly recommend meditation or evocation of the moment of death, which, by the way, will happen. And not only it will happen every day, we're a bit closer. That you cannot argue with. So, visualizing that. I mean, we have a whole weekend about it. I mean, it's a bigger topic. But realizing the mortality of our existence sets you free from the body. I mean, it doesn't mean you stop showering, do keep on personal hygiene, but you're not attached to the confinement of who you are. And it's one of the first keys to break the attachment to our existence in this body, and hence to a certain form of awakening of our soul, realizing who we truly are. Now, it's a very interesting tip. Journal, or write a journal, and read from your past. Okay. Read it every once in a while to look at patterns you had in your past and how you managed to overcome them, or how now they are not bothering you. As I mentioned, when I had that relationship, I was super jealous. After a while, I looked and I said, actually, I was jealous not because of her, it was because of me. Actually, that was a complete misunderstanding on my part. I was attached. And then you start to recognize the ways of attachment inside of you. And gradually, you catch the mechanism and you set yourself free. The next point is becoming more detached and loving. In a relationship, aim to be deeply altruistic. Otherwise, aim to love the other one only for their own joy and to promote their own joy and happiness, not in your version of how you think they need to be happy. Not in this way of, I want you to be happy with me, but simply, I want your happiness. And you do everything you can to promote their happiness, or to propagate their happiness. There's a wonderful tantric saying that goes as follows. The greatest happiness of a tantric lover is to make their lover happy. And you mentioned two lovers in the same situation. Their greatest happiness is to make the other one happy, and the other one happy. They kind of will just support that. And it doesn't mean they will stay in front of the door after you forever. I mean, it won't be that ridiculous situation. But for example, in lovemaking, when the two have that in mind, to offer as much love, as much pleasure to the other one, they create this beneficial cycle, and pleasure and love exponentially grow. The next very valuable point with attachments, overcoming attachment and becoming more detached. Stop taking yourself too seriously when you feel bad. I know it's very difficult. You feel bad, immediately you think about compensation. Ice cream, or any other thing that you really like, because you're feeling bad. And then you go and you speak with someone and you explain to them how bad it is. And then after a while it goes, isn't it? The problem is when we take ourselves too seriously in that moment, we create a habit and it stays on us. Now, I'm not saying by no means that you should suppress your feeling. But when you feel bad, just don't take yourself too seriously. And realize that all is in a constant process of transformation. And already that state is allowing you to stop the process of indulging, of being a victim, and of sufferance. You might still feel bad, but it stops there, and you can gradually move your way through it. And more than that, that reality that you feel bad could become an extremely valuable lesson for you. Because you feel bad because something went wrong, and often because you did something wrong, comes out later. Then you need to look into it, because within that feeling, there is a great lesson. You know why we feel pain in the body? So we can do something about it. If you won't feel pain, you won't do something about it. It's a wonderful tool of evolution. You feel a bit of pain, oh, you should put your attention on it so you won't feel that pain anymore. But somehow, with our psyche, we don't do the same. We feel pain, and we don't mobilize our attention for a process of healing or dealing with it. We feel pain, let's make a big deal out of it. Let's gather energy about me feeling so bad. I never met anybody which it actually helped them on the long run. It gives a momentary relief, like the ice cream. It doesn't help on the long run. You don't learn anything from it. And the last very meaningful point here. Become aware that realizing your attachments and becoming free one by one from all your attachments is in essence the path of emancipation, liberation, revelation of the self, or awakening, however, whatever name you want to call it. That is the path. An integral part of it, because there are other elements to it. Hence, it's so fundamental. Every time you see yourself attached, know that it caused your action. If you want another easy analogy, it's like a hot air balloon. You have the fire. This analogy is the fire of our soul longing for union. And then we have all those bags of sand. And that bag of sand is that relationship attachment, the family attachment, to this, attachment, that. And it keeps us on the floor, on the ground. And our fire is still yearning, but we stay on the ground. And with each attachment that we manage to cut, we're slightly and gradually lifting ourselves off the ground. And the view when you go up, that's what life has for us. Because that is the view that our soul was longing for. Vastness of creation. If we stay constantly in our little, because of our attachment on the ground level, we miss out on the journey. It's getting hot in here, this talk about attachment. If you have any questions before we move forward, short exercise, yes, Daphne.
I understand how emotions can be really tricky in relationships. I mean, we all know that. My understanding about relationships, though, or at least my experience, is that it can be even trickier in the sense that relationships have other aspects to it, such as beyond emotional, which is already hard enough, such as I might be over time, I might be financially independent, or I might not have a social, be in a different country, not have a social support system, or if I am in my country, I have a social support system, I'm not allowed to be divorced, I'm going to be marginalized. And these are social arrangements that we assume, and then we have the emotional stuff that's so we're talking about becoming a superhuman before you actually can even embark on the detachment thing, right?
No, you just, exactly what you said, is the first step of the process. You become aware of it. You look and say, in that relationship, you have an emotional dependency, you have a financial dependency, which is springing from an insecurity, and you observe all that. And then, in accordance to your ability, you take them one by one. So how can I become more detached at the emotional level? I take a bit of space, I learn how to love in a different way. I look at the other as an individual and not as a continuation of myself. And you build that. And then you tackle this financial dependency, which is another form of that. And then, with a step-by-step approach, you manage to overcome it. Nobody will come in with a magic wand of detachment. Sorted that.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting you to say.
Yeah, no. It doesn't work. As you see, you start, let's take your example. You observe that emotional dependency. You realize habits inside of you, patterns. You realize, ways of acting which is not actually who you are. And you become closer to yourself. From that challenge of overcoming that emotional attachment, you gain wisdom. You become more loving. You grew as a human being. So you went to the spiritual gym and you lifted that emotional attachment. So you managed to grow muscle, it became easy for them. You can leave it aside. You're stronger now as a human being. I sucked in everything that I said. I was horrible. Catastrophe. Like a real catastrophe. I was so attached to that human being. I had to take exactly the same approach. One by one. I mean, learning afterwards how to act is like, when you go on a long travel, you still have backpacks, and you let off the backpack, you feel so light after. You can continue your journey, but you don't have to carry all this with you. All the attachment that we carry, they make it so that life becomes heavy and hard. And you hear all this, oh my God, I'm exhausted, it's so difficult. My feeling is that life wasn't meant from the Creator to be such a hurdle. It is like, yeah, let's make everyone suffer a little bit. I don't think that was personally I believe in God, it was the all Creator, that was His idea. Let's see how they suffer. It wasn't that. We're here in a mysterious, mystic, joyful experience of life, and we manage to complicate it. And then gradually we need to remove that. And then we'll find something fascinating. Life is an extremely complex expression of the Creator in creation. And we make it complicated because we project with our mind, with our inadequacy, because we didn't learn about emotions and about human interaction, and we take the complex and we make it complicated. Hence we suffer. But if we're here, I have a feeling we don't want to suffer forever. Suffering has many levels. It's not like we are in agony every day, but certain levels. We want to become happier. But that's one of the pivotal points. Learn to be involved and detached in the same way, at the same time. And I must say, give you another example. When you're attached, you have only a certain resource at your disposal because you constantly identify with the limited sense of self. When you are detached and you realize, for example, you love someone, it's not just you that love that person. It's the entire universe, and the love that exists there flows in and through you towards that person. And it's much greater than what you can ever imagine. This little device here works on battery. That one is connected to the national grid. This is very limited. That one can power literally infinite. Or when you work, by the way, where you are sitting, everything you see around us was made by us. Students and teachers working together. We are not constructors. This is why we had to look at YouTube how to put some things. Some of the walls aren't straight, but you haven't noticed. But if you look, they are straight. Anyhow, we worked here. And we could be all attached to the work. It's me who is working. I need my, appreciation from everyone. I take on me the fruits, I sign my name. It's me. And I would dare say, if it would be the me approach, we would not manage to work and to do it like that. Because our battery will run very quickly. We worked 3 months, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. 150 people. Not all the time, they changed because people came after work, the whole story. But people had energy inside of them because they worked without being attached to the fruits of their action. It's a science called karma yoga. And suddenly they had much more energy. Because they stopped working on a battery and they start connecting to the national grid. Because when you do in that way, when you act in that way without being attached, the universe shines in and through you. It's a whole talk of karma. I won't go into it fully now. But that was exactly the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So that is something we cultivate. Nowadays we all learn about you have to be ambitious. Your career is who you are. You affirm your existence with the amount of zeros in your bank. After hopefully a digit. And now, this is how you are. And when you compare attached to us, to our actions. In 2007, 2008, in the US, after the crash, the number of people who tried to commit suicide or thought about it was 1 of 14. Two people in this room should take that number. Because they were so attached to their social status, financial status, what they do. They stop or they devalue their life, the most precious gift. Because they were so attached to that which was taken from them. This way is so fundamental, and we are being taught continuously the opposite. We're salmon fish here, because society teaches us how to cultivate attachments. And we aim to cultivate the opposite.
What about a sense of belonging? Is that also attached? So the idea that that you have a sense of belonging in your community, in your family, that's all attachment.
No, not at all. That's a beautiful thing. The sum is and less yours when you look at it from a distance. I belong to many circles of friends. I belong to this school, to Tara. I belong to, and I have a lot of sense of belonging. But I'm not attached to them. Love doesn't mean attachment. I deeply care about them, but I'm not attached.
So if they were to stop, you'd be okay.
I would be sad. It's part of a lesson and part of the process of growth. And you let them go.
So you'd have a grieving process,
and
that's okay.
It's an integral part of the human emotion. But with it, you don't cling to it. It's in the clinging, is the fact that you think that that is you, that attachment overpowers us. It puts a shadow on the luminosity of our being. I had a relationship. She decided to end it. I disagreed. But she was pretty firm. So we ended. I still love her. Cherish her deeply. I cannot, I let myself be detached from the situation, but still loving her. And it set me free. It was a wonderful, a learning experience. I did so many mistakes in that relationship.
Do you still feel pain from remembering?
No, now it's not pain anymore. As soon as I felt personally the pain was there for as long as I haven't learned my lessons. The moment I managed to contemplate, extrapolate, and extract all the lessons, I stopped feeling the pain anymore. I stayed with the love.
So when you don't have the pain, that's an indication that you've learned your lesson and that you have become
It's one of
attached.
them. Sometimes you don't feel the pain anymore because it didn't go as deep. And you got yourself busy with something else. You thought it's the world for you, but actually it was a superficial relationship, and after 2 weeks you got another toy and you focus on that. So maybe it wasn't that. But very often if it's something which hits deep, the moment you manage to process it fully, and you can only do it with a detached perspective, because otherwise an attached perspective will continuously either project on the other or create a state of victim and self-flagellation. When you're able to detach and observe all that, and you resolve it inside of you, as an analogy, that pain will become say a pleasure is big, but to say it will become a pleasure of learning, of understanding. Like with the physical body, when the moment you cure the source of what caused you pain, you healed.
What about the biggest, you could say, scourge of our time, the pain of our time, validation in social media, where everybody, obviously, the social media platforms want the engagement, but people of all ages, they get a sense of worth through their validation.
Yep. This is why they get depressed when they don't get enough likes. And the rate of suicide among teenage women from the age of 12 to 16 has grown 400% because they didn't get enough validation. So, this is an attachment to a sense of self. Like I said with the bats, you consider yourself only accordingly. You have to. And at that age, you cannot maybe do so much retreat, but you stop. You affirm your existence for a few weeks without social media. And you realize, I still exist. Because now I tweet, therefore I am. Or I mean, it's ridiculous. We constantly, if we have an opinion and nobody agrees, it's probably a bad opinion. Well, like in the communist time, we used to say, I have an opinion, but I disagree with it myself. So you are always sure that you're not... it's ridiculous. I have your opinion. So what? Nowadays, yeah. With the millennial generation, it's horrendous. It's all born from that, and we cultivate that as a society, not we here in the room. This is exactly where we need to set ourselves free.
So things like counselling and therapy, where actually you're talking about your thoughts and feelings that weren't validated, which is why you're suffering, and maybe you're seeking that for validation that you never got. Actually, that's all rubbish.
In essence, they feel a certain form of attachment. Therapy can be very meaningful to put the pieces of you together analogically. But forms of validation, which are like this, are a little bit like a paracetamol. They will remove the fever but not cure the disease. So they remove the pain. They don't really cure the lack of value that one has. They're an intermediary step. They don't really hit the point fully. Try to be, I was once by myself for a whole month. I saw sometimes the farmer going by. It wasn't enough to affirm existence. It's just you. The world enjoys its life without you, and it's just you. You cannot expect the validation from anything else. But then you find the real source of validation, which is existence itself. I am, therefore I am. It's really reassuring. It's the source of genuine self-confidence, a confidence in one's own true self. And then you can actually express yourself without the fear of what other people think. It's so freeing. Highly politically incorrect and really freeing. It's liberating not to search for validation for your existence. I had the same, I must tell you, as a teacher. But you sit in front of me. That's what I do almost every day of the week for 13 years. And you search for validation. Did they smile? Did they like me? I was exhausting myself like that. I didn't realize what I'm doing is fundamentally wrong. I have to restart. I'm just here to speak about what I believe because for me it sounds very interesting and valuable. Whether people like it or not, it's completely not up to me.
But do you feel better if people like what you're saying?
Not necessarily. I enjoy the interaction, but I must say, sometimes I say things which are very controversial. But I believe in them. I had people leaving the room with angry fists. No, I had the whole thing. There was a state of equanimity. We'll get to it in a minute. Because in Tantra, this is something fundamental, which is extremely difficult. They say one of the highest levels. To stay equal in front of praise, blame, and shame. Speaking about validation, you're doing that which you found true, and you're equal. And you know what? People who are praised now will be blamed later. Those who are blamed now will be praised later. If you are awake in the state of equanimity, you are equal in front of both. Then you just speak. Your heart.
But that's personal journey for everyone. And this validation is probably something is behind. That's why therapists are trying to find out. They try to explore with clients, right? So it's a healing process.
I was saying, it's putting the pieces together. It's a paracetamol. The real sense of validation comes from existence. It's not from a pain relief. It's not like somebody saying, yes, you exist. If you will go and search deep in meditation, you will find a sense of existence, which is radiance, is millions times greater than whatever therapist can affirm. For some, it's needed as an intermediary phase. But I said, the real lesson there is about that form of validation. You're equal. It's a high state. I'm now presenting the end of the journey. Ta-da! We are there, we are not there. But it's good to have a vision, and then you can start to say, okay, how can I grow? Personally, this is how I am.
No, I mean, having need for validation covers something. Yeah, so it's something.
There is a fundamental need, but it's not the need of validation, it's the need of affirming existence, which manifests then as social validation. But affirming existence actually comes simply by existence itself. It's included in the package. You are, therefore you are.
But isn't there something just a little bit in between, in that you don't seek the validation externally, but you're able to give it to yourself? So, for example, you're delivering something and you know, as a teacher or whatever, as a lecturer, if you've delivered a good session, you know, you can kind of know, I smashed this today. And then maybe it comes back, maybe positive stuff comes back, it doesn't, but you don't care.
You're equal. But you, of course, give yourself feedback.
Yes.
So like I said, and I managed to bore them for an hour and a half. Well done, now they'll never come back again. I mean, you're not like, you obviously observe it, but you aim to stay equal and you take the feedback and say, hey, that wasn't good, that was very good. You take the feedback. Let me duplicate what was very good, take out what wasn't good. That's always there. That's the process of growth. But the sense of self, the I, who you feel you are, is unaltered.
Sure, and I guess I just feel like there's something else where you say, I like what I did today.
Yeah, it's an intermediary process, for sure. But you don't let that, whether it was that or that, to crush your day.
No,
to
sure.
remove the sense of self.
Yeah.
That one can always stay the same. Because it is always the same.
I think the magic also is to free yourself from that so that you can then go into the next moment, whatever that next moment or the next day demands of you for another day of new experiences. But if you carry that baggage in your mind,
this is the goldfish approach. You forget and then never knew. But the actual one is that you assimilate and then you know. You don't forget. And it's very different. You extract all the fundamental lessons from the good and the bad equally. When you see everything as a lesson, whether it was pleasant or unpleasant, it's a great lesson. Sometimes what I thought was the biggest curse came out to be a great blessing. But you have to look at them at that moment and you realize, not in hindsight, not after a year, but in that moment you realize, well, maybe in what is seemingly a curse lies a blessing. You are equal in front of it. It doesn't make you numb emotionally though. It doesn't make you all, whatever. Fully infused. You express your desires, your heart, love, emotions. inside.
And give compliments and receive compliments, or,
Yeah.
or not bother with any of that.
No, definitely give compliments. If you receive, same equanimity. So again, that's the ideal. That's a process. We take it step by step in accordance to our ability. And it's terrifying. It's really terrifying because we are so used to that way of living. But the view, when you let go of those banks of sand, is remarkable. And that's, I would say, one of the great lessons